Let's just say that crying is embarrassing. Your face tightens, your nose runs, your voice breaks into something that doesn't even sound like you anymore. You can't think properly. You can't speak properly. And suddenly, you've lost control of your own body in front of other people. And then, if you're like most adults, you apologize for it. Sorry, I don't know why I'm crying. This is embarrassing. I'm fine. But listen to what you just said. You said you don't know why you're crying. We treat tears like a malfunction, like your body did something wrong, like the software crashed in public, and now everyone around you has to pretend they didn't see it. So let's start there, with the embarrassment, because buried inside that embarrassment, inside that desperate urge to look away, wipe your tears, and pull yourself together, is one of the strangest mysteries in all of human biology. You are the only animal on this planet that cries emotional tears. Not chimpanzees, not wolves, not elephants, only you. And the fact that it embarrasses you, that might be the most revealing thing about us. Here's what your biology teacher probably told you about tears. They keep your eyes alive. Every blink spreads a microscopic layer of fluid across the surface before the eye dries out and cracks. Tiny glands above the eye produce it constantly, coating one of the most exposed, most delicate parts of the human body in something so thin you never feel it working. Mixed into that fluid is lysozyme, an enzyme strong enough to kill bacteria on contact. All of that is true, and all of that completely misses the point, because your body produces three chemically distinct types of tears. The first is the basal tears, constant and invisible, doing their job right now as you watch this, and you'll never feel them. The second, reflex tears, these flood in fast. Smoke, wind, chopped onions. Your body treats them like an emergency that needs fixing immediately. But the third kind is the one that changes everything. Emotional tears. Their chemical composition is different. Not slightly, measurably. They carry elevated levels of stress hormones, ACTH, prolactin, leucine enkephalin, a natural painkiller your body only releases when something is wrong. Your eye doesn't produce those chemicals when dust gets in, only when you're breaking. No other species on Earth does this. That is not a coincidence. In 2011, a Dutch psychologist named Vingerhoets published a book called Crying, The Mystery of Tears. He had spent decades on one question. Why do humans cry emotionally when no other animal doesn't? His answer wasn't poetic. It was evolutionary. Crying survived because it works, not as a flaw. Not as a weakness leaking out of the body, but as a communication system so effective that 300,000 years of human evolution never found a reason to remove it. Here's why. Go back far enough and your ancestor is an infant. She cannot speak, cannot walk, cannot signal danger, hunger, or pain through language, because language doesn't exist yet. She is completely dependent on the adults around her. If they don't respond, if they miss the signal, she dies. Crying is that signal. Research shows that the sound of an infant crying activates the brain's threat detection system faster than almost any other sound a human can hear. It bypasses reasoning. It demands response. That cry kept your ancestor alive. But then language arrived. Words, gestures, facial expressions. Entire social systems built to communicate need with precision. And yet we kept crying. As adults. At funerals. At weddings. At songs that somehow name a feeling we've carried for years without ever finding the words ourselves. Evolutionary biology doesn't keep expensive systems running without reason. Crying costs something. It blurs your vision, tightens your throat, makes you physically vulnerable in front of other people. And yet it stayed. Which means it was still doing something language couldn't. In 2000, a biochemist named William Frey discovered something that should have changed everything. He compared the chemical content of reflex tears, the kind from onions, from smoke, from wind, against emotional tears. They were different. Not slightly different. Structurally different. Emotional tears contained elevated levels of cortisol byproducts, stress hormones, the same chemicals your body produces when it's been under too much pressure for too long. Think about what that means. Your body doesn't just cry when you're sad. Your body uses crying to get rid of something. The breakdown you've been trying to hold together, the weight you've been carrying quietly for weeks. Your nervous system found a way to physically remove some of it. Through your eyes. That long, ugly cry that leaves you exhausted and hollow and somehow lighter? That wasn't weakness. That was excretion. Your body self-cleaning. But Vingerhoets found something stranger still. When people cry alone, lights off, no one watching, they often feel worse afterward. Not relieved. Not lighter. Hollow. Which means the chemistry alone isn't enough. Because emotional tears were never engineered for privacy. Think about what a tear does to a human face. Not what it means, what it physically does. The eyes fill and shine. The muscles around the jaw loosen. The forehead softens. The shoulders drop. Every defense the face has spent years building, gone. In one study from the University of Tilburg, researchers digitally added or removed tears from photographs of human faces and showed them to observers. The faces with tears were consistently rated as more approachable, more trustworthy, more in need of help. Not because observers decided that, because their brains decided it for them, before conscious thought, before a single word, before any choice was made at all. People leaned toward the crying face without realizing they were moving. A tear doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask permission. It simply changes the air in the room, and every person nearby feels it. The pull, the softening, the instinct to move closer, before their mind has caught up to why. Long before language existed, tears were already doing this, already saying the thing words have always struggled to carry. I need you right now, and I trust you enough to let you see me like this. Now think about what modern life has done with this. We spent centuries, particularly in Western culture, building an architecture of contempt around tears. Don't cry, be strong, toughen up, keep it together. Boys especially received this message with extraordinary precision. Don't cry, ever, anywhere, for any reason, because tears mean weakness, and weakness means you're done. And it worked, in a way. Men in many cultures now cry far less than women. Not because they feel less, but because the signal got suppressed. The system was trained to stay quiet. But here's what that suppression costs. Studies from the University of Minnesota found that people who cry more frequently and feel relief from it tend to have stronger social support networks. They report deeper connections with the people around them. More emotional intimacy, more resilience after loss. Not because crying is magic, but because crying is a bid for connection. And when we suppress the bid, we suppress the connection. We live in an era of extraordinary emotional isolation. The data on this is relentless. Loneliness is at epidemic levels across the developed world. Rates of anxiety, depression, and social disconnection have climbed steadily for decades. And here we are, sitting alone in darkened rooms, watching characters on screens cry, and crying at them. Because somewhere in the circuitry, the need is still there, the signal still wants to fire. And if we won't let it reach the real people around us, it will find a fictional stand-in. There's a philosopher named Thomas Dixon who wrote an entire history of tears in Western culture. His central argument was this: crying is not just an emotion, it's a statement. Every time you cry, your body is making a claim about what matters to you. You can lie with words. You can perform with your face. You can craft an entire persona out of emotional control. But tears are much harder to fake and much harder to suppress. They leak through. And what they reveal, when they do, is the unedited truth of what you value. You cried at that movie not because it was a movie. You cried because it hit something real, something you'd been carrying, something you hadn't found language for yet. You cried at the graduation, not just because of pride, but because you understood, in that moment, that something was ending, that time had moved, that the person you love had become someone new, and that you were proud and you were grieving at the exact same time. That collision, pride and grief, joy and loss, love and fear, that's what tears are made of. Not one emotion, but the moment when two emotions that shouldn't coexist do. Your ancestors cried, around fires, over children, over loss, over skies so vast and silent they had no words for what they felt standing underneath them. They didn't have therapists. They didn't have language sophisticated enough to explain what was happening inside them. They had each other, and they had tears, which in the end often meant the same thing. We inherited that, all of it, the chemistry, the signal, the involuntary softening of a face that has been trying to stay hard. Your body never forgot what it was built for. The next time you cry in front of someone, notice what your body is doing. Not hiding, not performing, not speaking, trusting. For most of human history, that signal kept us alive. Maybe it still does. So today, create a safe space for someone you care about. Let them feel vulnerable in your presence. Let them trust you enough to let the tears come out. And don't forget to let someone do the same for you. Because sometimes, being fully seen by another human being is what finally lets the body let go.